Welcome back to the Cactus Classic 2023 edition, and the best part about it, coming up Saturday, the Run for a Million qualifier. I know we're all looking forward to that. And here to talk about it a little is legendary horseman, businessman, I don't know where to start, Clinton Anderson. Clinton, thanks so much for stopping by our studio.
Well, great to be here, mate. Always in Arizona. The weather's nice, the food's nice, and the horse show's great. What more could you want?
I'm so glad you're here because you've always been on the edge. And I wanted to ask you about a couple things. One we're going to get into. You got a new podcast coming up, which is fantastic.
Yep.
I know you're excited about it, and I want to talk about that. But I wanted to get your input on how you feel like these specifically spectator-driven events, like the Run for a Million, which Taylor Sheraton built around the last Cowboy,
yes,
and events like the American Performance Horseman that are geared strictly at the exhibit, or rather at the spectator. How do you feel like those are working? What do you see as the future? And how's this going to affect the horse business overall, in your opinion?
I think it's already affected it. You know, even Yellowstone, you know, just what Taylor's done with Yellowstone, take Run for the Million out of it and take the American out of it, just the cowboy culture's getting back to be cool again. Like back in the 80s, you know, JCPenney was selling Western wear for a while. You know what I mean? Because it was back being cool back then, and Taylor's brought that back. So I think it's already had a big difference. You can tell by the price of horses. You know, horses that we used to have to give a year $40,000 for a year and 45, now you can't touch for much less under 85,000. You know, it's almost double the price of horses, because I think personally between Yellowstone and the Run for a Million, the American, and just basically the exposure of the Western industry to the city people, masses, is bringing way more people into this business. So you've got a limited supply of horses and a massive amount of new people coming in, which is driving the price up. You know, so I don't think it's bad, but I just think that it's making a tremendous difference. That's what I think.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more, and I just wanted to get your input on how you think that's going to affect it going forward. And I think, like me, you agree it's going to be nothing but positive.
Nothing but positive. It's only getting bigger. I see people dressing like Rip. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like that Yellowstone has had an effect on people. You get what I'm trying to say?
Totally.
So outside of the horse shows, people are just wanting to get back to the Western lifestyle is cool. Ranching's cool. Owning a little bit of land's cool. Getting some cattle's cool. So I don't see it slowing down anytime soon, mainly just because I don't see Taylor slowing down. I don't see what his TV shows are slowing down. I don't see Run for a Million slowing down. I sure as hell don't see the American slowing down. So now you've got Teton on the deal as well as Taylor. I mean, talk about double. You know, you got two heavy world fighters now, not fighting against each other, but fighting for the same direction.
And I always say we're fortunate because they're two great storytellers.
Yes.
You know, from their television, movie backgrounds, they know how to reach a public audience that we haven't been able to reach yet. So I think it's great. One thing that's always kind of characterized your career is you've been out there on the edge. First guy I think of on TV, Down Under Horsemanship. You broke in with that, got to be over 20 years ago now, and you've maintained that television presence. Now you've moved into the podcast space, and you're one of the first to do that. And as we were talking about it a little bit before we went on the air, it's really not a horse podcast that you've come up with, but I love the direction you're taking it because it kind of mirrors your story and my story. And if you could just tell folks a little bit about what your podcast is and what it involves and what you're trying to do.
Okay. Well, it's called Uncut and Real Raw with Clinton Anderson. So that line should tell you a lot. It's uncut and it's real raw. Okay. So it's supposed to be a real honest conversation. And the concept of the podcast was I don't actually want it to be a horse training podcast or anything even like that. And it wasn't even directed at the equine world. I wanted to interview people that started with nothing, had built very successful businesses in the equine industry and out, made a lot of money, had a lot of screw-ups, had a lot of successes, and eventually succeeded with a lot of money, and we talk about that. It's like, in the Western world, it's almost like a taboo to talk about money and to talk about success. You know what I mean? Everybody wants money. Everybody needs it. Everybody's trying to get it. What the hell? Why don't we start talking about it? So I want to interview people and find out their life journey, because I think a lot of people think that unless you were born into wealth or you're from the Lucky Sperm Club, you can't make it. That's not true. America's the greatest country in the world. If you can't make it in this country, you can't make it anywhere, can you? So it's a great country. So it's designed to motivate people. When you get done watching it, I want you to be motivated to kick ass, make money, build your career, take care of business, save your money. Because I think it's sad that a lot of horse trainers and people in the Western industry have not paid attention to money. They've got to 50, 60, 70 years old and realize they got none. They're good people. They've worked hard. They're honest. They've done their job. But they did a really pitiful job when it came to managing their money. So basically, I want to talk about everything that people are thinking about it, but nobody really has the guts to actually say it.
I think that is such a fantastic opportunity for not just horse people, but that's special to me because I see the same things you do in the horse business. You know, nobody tells you your life's going to change when you hit 60 years old. You're not going to be able to be as active as you were, and you need to plan for that now. There's just no training for that, but hearing people like you, and you can bring other people on who have been through this vision successfully and relate their story, I think that's invaluable.
And not just that, we don't want to just talk about the successes. We want to talk about the screw-ups, even more. Where'd you get your bloody noses? Like one of them for me is when I tell people, you know, a little bit over 10 years ago, I almost went bankrupt. I made $14 million in 1 year, gross $14 million, and lost $375,000 the same year. It's embarrassing. I almost went bankrupt because it got away from me. The money, the accounting, it just got so big, this animal pretty much got out of the cage and I couldn't get the damn thing back in. But the fact that I'm real enough to admit that, people are like, thank God. He talked about his bloody nose. Now I overcome it and I came back better than ever, but I want people to know sometimes you got to get a few bloody noses to figure out how the playground works. So I want to sure talk about people's successes, my guest, but I also want them to be real and genuine to say, hey, Clinton, this is where I screwed up. This is where I failed. This is what I do differently. Or, you know, one of my best questions that I love the most, because I like to learn from them, I have a passion for learning from these people, is if you could go back to a 20-year-old Steve Ross, what would you tell yourself? I think the advice would be pretty important.
Exactly.
Whether we'd listen at 20, we're all dumb at that age, but we'd like to have a chance to mentor ourselves when we get to our age.
Well, here's where I feel like for the listener, this podcast is going to have tremendous value because as a guy who's known you a long time, has seen your career go from the very beginning all the way up to the very top. We were neighbors for years. You've always been really smart in business that you've gone to the industry leaders. Your associations I've known you through in the horse business are Bob Avila, Andrea Fapani, our late great friend Doug Carpenter, on and on. So I feel like with your podcast, you're going to do the same thing. So
you are who you surround yourself with.
Totally.
You know, gangsters hang out with gangsters, bums hang out with bums, and rich people hang out with rich people. Politicians hang out with politicians. So if you ever want to know what you are, just look at your 5 friends. And that's what you are. I want to hang around people with more money than me. I want to hang around people that are smarter than me. I want to hang around harder working people than me because I want to get as good as them. So I've always had a little bit of a talent for, where I'm weak, I want to surround myself with people that are strong so I can learn their skill set, learn their secrets, learn what they do. You know what I mean? I always say this about America. It's the greatest country in the world. But in America, if you want knowledge, if there's something you want to learn, somebody in this country's got it. All you have to do is find out who they are and negotiate a price. It's that simple. There's no secrets anymore. Find who's got what you want and negotiate a price to get it. It's that simple.
If you don't see the value in this podcast, you hadn't been listening for the last 10 minutes. Clinton, thank you so much for coming by. I'm so excited. This is the kind of thing I love. This is the kind of thing that inspires me, and I love hearing other people's stories. And I think what's such an important element is you're going to include the failures too, because that's life. You've seen me when I was at my lowest.
Absolutely.
Had to fight back through it. We've all been there. Anybody worth their salt's had to do it. Nobody gets a free ride.
Cheers, mate.
Thanks so much. Hey, don't forget here at Cactus Classic, what could be the greatest rating all year this Saturday is the Run for a Million qualifier. 100 of the best horses and riders from literally all over the world. You don't want to miss it. Kicks off at 8 a.m.